Hey guys, if you haven't seen the Djokovic on-court interview after the Rune match, I highly recommend that you check it out. It's on the Wimbledon YouTube channel. But let me summarize it for you real quick. Novak addressed his haters in the stands. He told them to have a good night, and he was basically mimicking the booing that they were doing during the match. Now, some people are saying that the people were actually saying Rune instead of booing. Who knows? But fact is, Novak was directly talking to the haters and telling them that they can't touch him. Before I tell you my opinion on this whole thing, let me talk about Novak's performance. And I feel like since the French Open, we have the real Novak back, because this year was so mysterious. There were so many weird performances by Novak in different tournaments where it almost looked like he had no motivation. But at the French Open, I felt that this was the old Novak, and who knows how deep he would have gotten in the tournament if he didn't hurt his knee. Now, a lot of people were questioning whether Novak is going to be fit enough to play Wimbledon, and in the first two matches, he did look a tad unstable at certain times, but then in the Popperin third round match, he looked a lot better. And against Rune, who is such a tough player to beat on any surface, but especially on grass, Novak took him out in 3 easy sets. So we see on the old Novak, who has a good draw. He plays de Minaur next. I cannot see Novak losing that match. He's going to potentially play Fritz in the semis. I also don't see Nole losing to Fritz. The thing that makes Novak great is that he plays his best tennis when it matters most. That's the sign of a champion. And when it comes to Grand Slam finals, this is where Novak figures out a way to win these matches. It digs so deep. So whoever's going to be in that final, if Novak makes it there, is going to have a ridiculously tough time putting away Novak Djokovic, despite the fact that he's 37 years old. He is still capable of winning Grand Slam tournaments, as I've been telling you guys all year long. Now let's talk about the Novak haters. Even with the knee surgery, there were so many stories written how this injury was fake. First of all, people were saying how he was faking the injury in the Musetti match, which made absolutely zero sense because he called for a trainer up a set early in the second. So why would you fake an injury when you're up in a match and prolong the match for no reason? So that made no sense. Then people were saying that he didn't have surgery at all and this is all fake. So Novak does get a tremendous amount of hate on social media. There's no doubt about that. Nadal does receive some hate, but Novak hate far surpasses any player in the history of tennis. Let's compare him to some of the bad boys from the past. For example, McEnroe. A lot of people dislike McEnroe, but did McEnroe get the same amount of hate that Novak does? Did McEnroe get booed in various tournaments across the globe? Not to the extent that Novak has. See, naturally what happens to a lot of athletes or human beings in general, if you will, is that when they're criticized, they feel a motivation to prove that person wrong. Now, I don't know what it feels like to be booed at by 15,000 people in a stadium. I think most of us will go home and cry into our mommy's lap. I'm just kidding, but it's probably a horrendous feeling that a lot of people would falter under. Just think of the home court advantage in team sports. The home team has an advantage for a reason. It's called home court advantage. The other team falters under the support for the home team. So it can't be easy to perform at your best when the whole crowd is against you. But Novak has proven throughout his whole career that he plays his best tennis under those circumstances. When the crowd starts booing him and messing with him, he starts playing better and most of the time ends up as the winner of the match. Now let me specifically address what Novak did after the match, which is something that I don't think he's ever done, which is addressing the haters in a post-match interview. To be fair, Iga has done a similar thing at the French Open and she didn't receive as much backlash. She did receive some, by the way, when she made that statement complaining about the crowd. But Novak, of course, received far more criticism, but he also received a lot of praise for doing what he did. So here's the thing. I'm by no means comparing the world of social media to real life professional sports. Novak Djokovic is one of the most famous people in the world and he plays in front of a live audience. YouTubers, however, they deal with a tremendous amount of hate and trolling. And some of the biggest YouTubers go by the unwritten law of YouTube, which is to never respond to the haters. And when somebody does respond to the haters and starts going back and forth with them in the comment section, it is never a good look. So while social media and real life are two different things, you could make the logical conclusion that this was not a good look for Novak. So why is it not a good look on social media? Because by you getting into it with the haters in the comment section, you are acknowledging them. You are letting them know that they got to you. Now, of course, in real life, it's a completely different thing. But I do think that by Novak addressing the hater, he is acknowledging them, and he is somewhat admitting that they have an effect on him. Now, in Novak's case, this effect is not negative, okay? He turns negativity into positivity better than any player in tennis history. So here's my opinion on this whole thing. And feel free to agree or disagree with me in the comments section. So Novak, early on, tried to embrace the crowd. He was doing the hugging ceremony for a while. Now, in the last 2 years or so, he doesn't care anymore, and he's letting the haters have it with different gestures on the court, telling them to be quiet, or many other things that he was doing. Now, his newest celebration after the match is playing the violin. Now, a lot of people think that this is for the crowd, but his daughter Tara is taking violin lessons, and if you pay close attention, you can see that Novak is directly looking at his daughter, and when he's done playing the violin, he blows her a kiss. So while I do think that this celebration is directed towards his daughter, I think he's also playing the violin a little bit for those guys in the stands. This is a Balkan thing. And look, I understand that Novak has had it because he has received a lot of unfair criticism, let's face it, and I can completely understand that he's upset, and he's being brutally honest, and I personally respect that. And if this is how Novak feels, if he wants to address the haters after a match, I respect his choice because, in my opinion, Novak has been very unfairly treated throughout his whole career. Now, why has Novak been unfairly treated? Well, that's a topic for another video. It's very hard to pinpoint, and often when Novak haters write in the comments why they hate Novak, the reasons that they're listing are actually not the real reasons. So I don't believe that you hate Novak because he threw his racket once. You know how many players throw their rackets? I mean, Roger Federer smashed the racket a couple of times, hit a ball into the stands, and you conveniently forget that, but you're supposedly upset that Novak smashed his racket a few times. So that's not the reason. Again, I'm not going to address the potential reasons why people hate Novak in this video. We might do that in another one. I personally think that what Novak did yesterday in the post-match conference is good for the game of tennis because it's creating a lot of headlines. A lot of people are discussing this. It's entertaining, it's interesting. And I've said this many times, we can't only have nice guys on tour. We have to have different personalities. And I'm not saying that Novak is not nice. I've talked many times that he is one of the most generous players that I've ever read about. He bought an apartment for a fellow player in Serbia called Krajinovic. He helped Medvedev out financially on tour. There are probably a lot of other people that Novak has helped through the years that we never hear about. Novak is very gracious to his opponents. So Novak is a nice guy, but sometimes he lets his fiery side come out, and I think it is good for the game. I know the haters are going to come at me, are going to say, are you approving of Novak smashing his racket? No. I don't want anybody to smash their rackets. If a player of mine throws a racket, I tell them not to do it. I personally have thrown rackets when I was younger, but I don't do it anymore. It is not good to disrespect the tennis racket, okay? But I am okay, however, with letting some negative emotions out. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to scream on top of your lungs, but it's okay to be negative. See, what makes Novak so great is that he's so honest, and he shared in an interview a few months back that it is okay to be negative on the court. It is how quickly you come out of the negativity. If you let the negativity linger into the next points, the next game, or throughout the entire match, you most likely going to end up as the loser of the match. So Novak's great strength is not controlling his negativity. He allows it to come out. He's real on the court, but his greatest strength is coming out of the negativity and playing his best tennis on the very next point.